Now let's bring in geneticist Wei Zhou. He's the president and CEO of Centrillion Technologies. Welcome to the show.
Thanks. Thanks for having me.
Now, genetic testing has expanded significantly in recent decades, and we're now able to assess risks for everything from breast cancer to dementia. What cracked the code, and how much further will science be able to go in this area?
I think the Human Genome Project play a major role in decoding the genome. Now, we have not completely decoded the genome yet, but the technology has advanced so much in the last few decades that we now have a very good understanding of the genome. Another major fact in decoding genome is the studies funded by many countries, including the National Institute of Health here in the United States, to study the relationship between genetic features, diseases, and their relationship.
Now let's break down some of the information there. So knowing your risk for a disease or a condition doesn't always mean that you're going to end up having it. So is it still worth being tested if you might just end up with a maybe?
Yeah, from healthcare system point of view, from population point of view, I think probabilistic information is still very helpful because you can accurately predict how many people in a population might get the disease. As for individual, if the information is actionable, that means it can lead to preventive measures, for example, then I think it's still meaningful. However, genetic information is very personal and is very private. I think any individual should be considered carefully before making decision to have a genetic test.
Now, in many countries, genetic testing isn't considered preventative or covered by health insurance. So we're seeing a lot of these private companies and some of these DIY testing kits coming into this space. What are the pros and cons of putting that in the hands of consumers?
You know, I think direct-to-consumer genetic tests deliver results directly to consumers, sometimes without help of healthcare professionals. And I think many of the DTC companies are struggling with presenting data and that in a format that's understandable to consumers. So we have to be very careful. On the other hand, I think genetic information, when used responsibly, can be empowering. For example, understanding disease risks may guide directions for example, exercise diets.
Now, one of the issues that we usually hear about is the ethical concerns when it comes to genetic testing. What are some of the issues that tend to get raised?
I think because genetic information is so personal and also can reveal information about your relatives, so privacy is a major concern. And in addition, because at least at the moment, we cannot change our genome, therefore, there might be stigma attached to so-called negative genetic features. And so, therefore, these information could potentially be used to discriminate against people, for example, for insurance premium. And so these are major issues to consider. And genetic testing also has ethics issues similar to other technology, for example, equality in access.
And speaking of how our information is used, we also see lots of ads for DNA kits promising to reveal your ethnic heritage. But with some of these, you end up consenting to allowing your DNA results to be used for research. What would be the purpose of that, and how much value could that add to the market?
I think, scientific research is very important in helping scientists understanding genome. So consumer participation in research is a good thing if it's done responsibly. I think the key word here is informed consent. And consumers must be informed, and they have to consent to the research.
Certainly words to live by. Thank you so much, Wei Zhou, President and CEO of Centrillion Technologies.